Sleeping Dogs is one of the most 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10 games out there. Anyone who plays it can agree that while the game is not considered to be the best game ever, it is really solid and replayable. And I'm very happy to say that a new way of replaying this game has recently been made possible thanks to the modder that goes by the nickname of Sneaky Evil. Even if you are not interested in replaying this game, it is still curious to see what Sleeping Dogs already does that borderlines on diegetic interface principles, and how exactly such a simple change as disabling some of the UI elements leads to a completely new experience of the same game. Some of you might know that the option to disable HUD is already present in Sleeping Dogs settings, but unfortunately it gets rid of absolutely all HUD elements, including purchase pop-up, radio, SAS indicator.
Now we have to stay conspicuous. Don't do anything that is suspicious. Don't attract any attention. What? What happened?
Racing information, button prompts, but most notably foam, that you will need to use throughout the game, so it renders it unbeatable with disabled heads-up display. This mod can also do a few things that the No-HUD option doesn't do at all. And if you don't like a change, you can toggle it in the mode menu straight in the game, no editing of any files is required. This mod offers a few quality of life changes. First of all, you can change FOV, a setting this game is sorely lacking, especially if you're going to be playing on an ultra-wide monitor. And you can now disable camera auto-centering when driving, if that's something that annoys you. There is also a set of graphical options not offered in game settings. Those might be useful if you are running on an older computer or simply don't like depth of field or bloom. And lastly, if text in-game is too small for you, you can increase its size, making subtitles easier to read, which might be useful for Steam Deck users, for example. That covers the quality of life changes this mod offers. Now let's jump into the HUD settings and how they change the game. If you played Arkham games, from where Sleeping Dogs draws inspiration for its counter-attack system, you'll know that on the new Game Plus difficulty, indication of enemy attack is disabled. So you have to look at actual enemies instead of reacting to appearing lightning bolts above their heads.
We have positive ID on Batman. He's kicking all kinds of ass down there.
What? In Sleeping Dogs, when NPCs attack you, they glow red, and you can't disable it in settings or by upping the difficulty, since the game has a fixed one. But now you can, and thankfully wind-up animations are all great, so no attack will ever come out of nowhere. You still have enough time to react, but now it's a little more complicated than simply reacting to the color red. From time to time you may get grabbed and need to press the button in time to not get hit. This mod has a setting to disable those action buttons, making combat just a little more challenging, as grapplers have two different buttons you need to press for different situations. I wouldn't recommend disabling this option if you aren't very familiar with the game, as it has a few other actions that also rely on action buttons. What I do recommend disabling is Crosshair. Oh yeah, here we go again. I know this is like the third video I mentioned disabling Crosshair in, but somehow this is the first one that has an actual shooting at enemies in it. Now it will make it harder for you to simply headshot everyone, but it makes headshots more meaningful, and I'm telling you, for Sleeping Dogs, it just works. The camera is up close over the shoulder, most of the shootouts rely on you using slow motion, aiming has a soft lock, and default Crosshair is not very useful anyway, due to the sheer spread of bullets and their travel time. Check out me trying to shoot this tire. Why aim with Crosshair at all if my bullets arrive there 2 seconds later? I'm getting better results just looking at the bullets. Check this out. Oh fuck. By the way, this mod originally didn't have a Crosshair disable option, but then I asked the mod after if he could add it, and he did, so you're welcome. I didn't do shit, but you're welcome! Funny story, I thought that I might be requesting a feature that is outside of what's possible. Some games just have weird ties to certain UI elements, especially older ones. But turns out Sneaky Evil is fucking god. He's working on a multiplayer mode, made model changer mode, created a hologram speedometer, but most importantly, he made this.
Why don't you have a pork bun in your hand?
You can also disable your ammo indication. Sleeping Dogs is not one of those games that have an ammo indicator, even though you don't really need it, as you'll likely never run out of bullets, but disabling it makes you pay even more attention to not wasting them and can lead to tense situations where you need to find a new weapon ASAP. Besides, it hides game respawning bullets for you in driving sections and increases the immersion. Speaking of which, I think there is plenty of conversation already around how such a simple change as disabling Minimap can lead to a greater immersion in the game. I want to focus on what this change results in terms of gameplay for Sleeping Dogs. I myself wasn't even aware of just how much I look at the minimap instead of the road during street racing. And how much better it is to escape the police when you don't see them spawning on the minimap, or how big their circle of search is exactly. I've never even noticed that there is this nice FOV effect to let you know if you are outside of the police's chase circle. Now, tying it back to difficulty, you'll likely have less health, because without the minimap showing you health shrines nearby, you might not pay as much attention to them. Don't get me wrong, they do stand out from the environment, but you might miss less if you play with minimap enabled. Now, you can use your map and place markers instead if you want to get all of them, but if you're exchanging constant minimap to constantly having to open a map, then okay, you do you, I guess? I mean, there is nothing wrong with that approach, it's just that personally, especially for a replay, I find the change to the pacing that comes with disabled minimap to be a worthy price for not getting a 100% completion. But a new player can still use the map to get all of the collectibles and benefits that come with them if he wants to do so. Note that the player unlocks collectibles on the map later in the game while they are visible on your minimap from the beginning. I preferred to not use the game's map for my replay because Definitive Edition has incorporated its DLC content into the main game and not all of it is good. So not paying attention to the game's map and engaging with those missions only when they are on my way to something else allows me to better immerse myself in this world. But wait, wouldn't you need to open the map constantly anyway to know where to go? And here, surprisingly, no. We all know that line on the minimap that shows us where to go on the road. Well, Sleeping Dogs has an alternative to that. It calls it GPS arrows, and they are on by default. The principle is very simple. If you need to take a turn, you see a giant arrow on the road itself. If you need to take a specific road, you see a giant arrow above that road. As simple as that. But wouldn't you need to constantly open the map anyway to place the markers on where you need to go? Nope. Sleeping Dogs has a feature where at the press of the button you switch between objectives. Even cooler, if there is a side objective that is close to you, then it is included in this cycling list of objectives. So it's not like I'm telling you to stick only to the main story. You will do plenty of side missions using this system alone anyway, no hopping in and out of the map is required. Now, granted, the objective indicator isn't great for all of that immersion I'm talking about, but it's good enough and I don't recommend disabling it fully. You can get through probably 80% of this game without it, but there are some instances where you don't know where exactly to go or where your objective is relative to where you're on the road right now, or what car do you need to steal exactly. Besides, you can always hide it by finishing cycling objectives, so there is no need to disable this pop-up in the mod. I don't see much of a reason to disable region indicator pop-up as well, as it appears very rarely, only when you go from one region to another. I prefer it disabled because it's a pretty low-res texture for modern monitors, but as far as pop-ups go, it's not that bad. Which I can't say about the social rewards pop-up. It's not horrendous, but this game is pretty obsessed with gamifying literally everything you do. Oh, you drove for 5 seconds without hitting anything, let's see if you can get a new score. Oh, you punched an enemy with your leg? Keep doing that, let's see if you can get a new score. Oh, you're driving a motorcycle? Did you know that your friend lasted 50 seconds driving it on one wheel while you lasted only 30? Try to beat his score! I mean, developers knew it could get a little intrusive, so you don't need to use this mod to disable this feature in settings. Now, back to our hot corner. Besides minimap, we can also disable face meter. Since there is no strategic management of the face meter in this game, for example, if some moves require a certain percentage of face meter to pull them off, then I would understand keeping it on, but it simply goes up with every punch and activates automatically. increasing your damage, healing you with every punch you make, and letting you grab ungrabbable enemies. And you see that it is active from the screen filter effect and audio cue, so there is no reason to keep the face meter on screen. Basically same goes for the health meter. You are always better off simply not getting punched. There aren't any moves where you need to consider the risk-reward relation. Besides, you want to know how messed up your character is? Well, how about you look at the character? This game has amazingly good looking blood on your clothes and face effects. If you look like that, you just know you need to eat some pork bun and change your clothes, because you can't simply wash the blood away. So now you have a new reason to use already existing video game mechanic. Before there was no reason to change bloody clothes apart from aesthetics, but now wouldn't you want your character looks to reflect how much health he has? Even if your answer is no, or you just prefer Wei looking like he's on his way from the fight club, it still doesn't mean that every death would be a sudden surprise for you. Because while you can't see how much health you have exactly, all you really need to know is if you are at low health or not. And this game has a feature for tracking that already. If you are at low health, you can hear Wei's heartbeat. The lower the health, the louder the heartbeat. And that's how you know that it's time to prioritize your counters and covers until you regenerate some health with time or activate the face meter. And speaking of health, something this mod also allows you to do is to disable enemy health UI. This UI element shows you the enemy type and how much health they approximately have. But once again, if you want to see the enemy type, it's enough to just look at the enemy. Health information might be useful because you might prefer choosing how exactly you want to finish them off and when. Wow, that sounded weird. And also there is at least one move in the game that can be done only when enemy is low health. And unfortunately it's my favorite one. It allows you to throw them off various spots.
Impressive.
I prefer this setting disabled for immersion. And once again, if you want to know how beaten someone is, just look at him. I do prefer the environment objects highlight setting on, but this mod allows you to disable them as well. Usually, if something looks like it can be used on an enemy, then you probably can use it on an enemy. However, sometimes something looks like it can't be used on an enemy, but you can. The last thing I want to cover that this mod offers is disabling action prompts. These are things like prompts for jumps or vaults or the sleep button or the pick up weapon button. With jumps and vaults specifically, the way it works in Sleeping Dogs is you need to nail the timing of the button press, and if you fail, your character will do the action sloppy. But those timings are not tight, they are quite easy to pull off. So if it's been a minute since you've played the game, you may want to leave action prompts on just for like an hour until you'll figure out which button does what. But after that, yeah, there is no reason to keep them on. You can also disable them without this mod by disabling contextual help in settings. Something that I never knew I could do because... Come on, contextual help. How was I supposed to know that that's what it does? Oh, also, this game has these pop-ups to let you know how many points you scored for a certain move, and at the end of the mission it awards you XP points based on how much you scored. Honestly, I've beaten this game like 5 times and never paid any attention to them, so I recommend disabling them as well. But I do find it funny how Wei gets negative cup points for being clumsy. I guess parkour is part of standard San Francisco Police Academy training. In the beginning, I emphasized that I see this tool as being useful more for a replay than the first playthrough, but throughout the course of making this video and experimenting with this mod, I changed my mind. And I think that this is a great option to experience the game, even for someone who never played it. I was saying stuff I said in the beginning mostly due to the game locking its fighting moves upgrades and health upgrades behind collectibles. But you will find all of the statues to upgrade your moves as you progress through the story, and most of the health shrines as you roam around in the open world. And even for the rest of them, later in the game you can unlock the locations of all collectibles, and then you can use your map in combination with the objective marker to collect everything. I just want to thank Sneaky Evil for this mod and the Sleeping Dogs community in general. In only the past year there have been so many videos extensively covering this game, and while we'll likely never get a sequel for it, it is nice to find a new way to enjoy it. Thank you for watching this video, leave a comment and be a whole man, even if you are a woman.
A man who never eats pork buns is never a whole man.
Or vegan.
Serve it up.
Good, Taya. Why don't you have a pork bun in your hand?
And please stop by again if you find one of my statues.